Alright, so you guys have already warped your looms, so it's time to start actually weaving. You should have your warp thread on the front and back, and the bottom should be just going straight across like this, and the top, remember, you should have all these little notches where you went around, right? So make sure that when you start weaving, you're not starting at the top, so make sure you're not holding it upside down. That's why we wrote top and bottom on there, so I know it's kind of hard to see, but all right, next, once you get your yarn, you want to cut off a good amount, but not too much. Make sure that it is not tangled up. You are going to take your tapestry needle and you're going to thread this through, okay? It should be pretty easy to get. You don't want to double up your yarn. We want to do the kind of same thing that we did with our journals, where you've got a little tail right here, keeping everything in place. So you've got all this yarn that you're going to start weaving with. So I'm going to start on this side. And remember that when we're weaving, let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay. When we are weaving, you're going to start, our basic weaving pattern is over under, okay? So I kind of use this needle to help me kind of go through. So I'm going to start, it doesn't matter if you start over or under, but I'm going to start by going under. Then I'm going to go over this one, so skip it, and then go under the next one. So over, under, over, under, over, under, all the way across. Okay, there we go. And then after you do this, you actually have to pull all the string through. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull all of this until I get to the very end, all the way. You have to be careful this part. You don't want to get any knots like I just did. Oh well, that's all right. I'm just gonna make it like that. All right, so you want to leave about a finger's length of yarn coming off the end. So once I've done this, I can press down, make sure that's all going down to the bottom, very bottom of my weaving. Now, I've done this side. Now my string, all my string on my needle is coming off of the left side here. So I'm going to continue going kind of around my loom. So I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm in the same spot. Okay, so I can go across here. Do this exact same thing. So over, under, all the way across. Sometimes the needle isn't quite long enough, so you might have to go over, under, and kind of pull it out like I did, and then continue going over, under. And then we pull all the way through again, just like you did on the front. Okay, and you're going to pull it all the way through until you can't pull anymore. Okay, so I've pulled it all the way through. I'm going to do the same thing and carefully push it down. You don't want to pull it way too tight, okay? You want it to be still a little bit loose, okay? Because then it's going to be easier to press down. Okay, so now that I've done this side, I'm ready to flip back over to the next side, okay? So here's where it starts to get a little tricky. You want to make sure, if I just went under this string, you want to do the opposite for the whole next layer. So the way that I do that is I just look at the first one, and then I'll do the opposite of it, and then I can continue doing that for the rest. So for this string, I started by going under. So on this row, I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go under the next one, okay? This way, I'm going to make sure that my weaving is actually interlocking together. If I don't do this, then your string's just going to kind of be sitting in between your warp threads, and it's not actually being woven at all. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this through. Now here's a trick. Because you don't want to pull too tight across here, what I do is I put my finger right here on the end. I make a nice little triangle like this. See how it makes a little triangle like that? And then I'm going to use my fingers to press that triangle down. And that gives me enough yarn that it's not too tight, but it's also not too loose. Okay, so then you're just going to keep on doing this. So I flip over to this side, I look at this first warp thread, and I say, okay, so I went under the last time with this thread, which means this whole row I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to start by going over, then under, over, under, and you just keep on doing this all the way until you either finish this string, or you say, I've done enough of this color and I want to finish. Okay, so I'll show you what it looks like when you want to finish, just like this. Okay, and you push it down, and you're going to keep doing it. And I find it's easy to keep your weaving flat on the table while you do this. That way you don't lose track of which way you're going. And if you are getting a little bit confused, you could take a Sharpie or a pen or something and just simply draw arrows pointing in the direction that you're supposed to be weaving. So when you flip it over, you don't get confused. All right. So that's another way that you can kind of remind yourself. I'll have another video on changing colors and finishing your weaving.